Dr. Ruth speaks fluent, true story, it's a true story. And it's our #1 book internationally. It's our #1 market in France. And Dr. Ruth was born in Israel, lost our entire family in Germany during the war, speaks fluent French, went on all the TV talk shows about responsible literacy. Because our whole platform is financial literacy, technical literacy, cooking, gardening, sexual literacy. That's what we offer. And to bring a Dr. Ruth, the authoritative, ubiquitous, fun, she's a part of our icon branding process, because you look at her and you kind of laugh and she must be involved with this fun experience, and boy, what's she doing? Sex. And she's come to our tax parties and come to our gardening and launch parties and come to our .com parties, and we get the media and they say, Dr. Ruth, what are you doing? Well, I was trying to fill out my taxes and I couldn't do it, so of course Taxes for Dummies. So we got this whole compounded effect by partnering with the right celebrities. This is a global brand. It's also a heavy-duty physical brand. When you go to Costco or Price Club, you're going to see major penetrations. People told me Dummies is a flash in the pan. Okay? They said DOS for Dummies is a flash in the pan. You were lucky with PCs for Dummies. Personal finance for Dummies will never work. Sex for Dummies, my God, you're crazy. Okay? But we don't service opinions and attitudes. We service customer and foot traffic. And the customer vote every day. And the cash register is ringing based upon the emotional connecting and the brand connection that's been so vibrant and so much a part of our success. Internationally, we try to go to Singapore, Asia. 4 years we couldn't make a dent. The notion in Asia of honor. Do not insult your colleagues. And we finally convinced them to take a test. And they went in, and all of a sudden, boom, it blew up. Now you go to Singapore, and you'll see double-decker buses. You'll see taxi cabs. You go to London, you'll see a tremendous amount of event marketing we do. We very much like a Branson or a Joe Boxer. We do a lot of field event marketing. So it's a global brand. And if you look at the notion we do, it's not a U.S. phenomenon. People are smart, don't have a lot of time, they're time-starved, they've got to be productive, they've got to generate a report, study for a test, and they don't want to look at these big tomes. They're not going to go sit today on the internet and take a course. They don't have the time to drive to the library or sit and watch a video. They want to get quick information fast. You're seeing this big growth of pre-IPO and IPO companies, eHow and How2HQ and Learn2.net, all the people trying to capitalize on what Peter Drucker said is real, that the future of learning is not going to be an instructor in a classroom with a big textbook and a highlighter and students. You're going to have lifelong learning 24/7 at the convenience of your home, your dorm, your work, and that's what we're migrating the brand to be very relevant online, because brands do matter. And if you look at Yahoo and AOL and Amazon, some of the premier brands, you're seeing 65-70% recall. Who are the most preferred brands? And that's going to be a very sustainable competitive advantage moving forward. Globally, I mentioned 31 languages. Some of the challenges we had in Asia, we now have joint ventures in 3 different countries, but it's been a very fun experience to see people feel and say, oh, you are the Dummies, man. I have to shake your hand. This is in Tokyo, Singapore, KL. And it gratifies me because I never thought I could touch the hearts and minds of people around the world. We touched upon the icon. Thank God I changed my glasses. I was in the Grand Cayman Islands and I had the circular black bespectacled glasses. I threw them away because I was getting, this Dummies concept. But if you think about your company, are you taking the vivid, graphical, rich, mnemonic characters together? Not necessarily always has to be playful, but something that's memorable. The red umbrella. And what's that? Which company? Bingo. Okay, you know that it's instantly recognizable. And you didn't have to see it. You just had to just visualize it in your mind. And just a couple of examples. Personality branding can be done in a lot of different ways. If you look at Tom Clancy and Tom Wolfe, what does Tom Wolfe wear all the time on media, at events? That white suit. What does Tom Clancy wear? That leather bomber jacket with the USS hat. What does Peter Norton do historically? Peter Norton's been out of the software business for 12 years. But Peter Norton's on every semantic box with his hands folded, okay? Outsells any software sold by Symantec with Peter Norton on or Peter Norton off. The notion of how to create a personality that's very instantly identifiable, rich, and memorable. The magazine example. If you look at naming, okay, Forbes is the name of a man, a family. It's got a very instant identifiable, the capitalist tool. Pretty strong brand. If you look at Fortune, it's descriptive, not as strong. It's got some very moderate attributes. And if you look at U.S. News and World Report, It's not a real engaging brand. It doesn't have a lot of rich memorability. It doesn't have an instant emotional connection. So a good example of how Forbes and its personality and its position about government spend and how it takes a stand and how provocative it is with nailing companies or making projections is very much a part of the brand and the identity that the Forbes family has created. And then again, just another example of the company as a brand. Scholastic, it's a very much juvenile focus. It's got the ability to put that Scholastic bar in any book and it becomes a valued experience for your child. DK, the 4-color Eyewitness series, again, a fairly consistent brand package, and when you look at a DK product, you know it's going to be a very visual approach to learning as opposed to reading lots of words. So let me just kind of sum up the notion of today's talk about branding. And so often I find my team, and particularly new people to our company, they come on board and say, let's look at the features and benefits. Let's look at the product attributes of this new launch. We just acquired Cliff Notes last year, a 40-year-old brand, had not done more than $12 million in the last 11 years, never published outside of literary notes, never published outside the US, and we've just launched now Cliff Notes Guide to Yahoo, AOL, investing, understanding life insurance, because we believe we can take unexploited brands, take it not only into a print vehicle, but if you look at cliffnotes.com, we're selling electronic downloads, and the peak time when we're selling downloads, when would you guess it is? 7-day week, Cliff Notes. You left it to the last minute, Sunday night, bingo. What does that tell you about emotional linkage, psychographical connection? I am a little slack, I got a lot on my plate, I keep it to the last second, I didn't really comprehend King Lear, I want to understand the plot, I want to get more notes, okay? Downloads, Sunday night, in anticipation of a book report or an exam. You've got to start asking your team, not about the product attributes, but the brand surround. And the notion is, what are some of these psychographical emotional connections we have, and how do we leverage that? So our theme of Cliff Notes is Cliff Notes saved my butt for 40 years. Who's saving it now? Okay, but people, when we did a roadshow and we talked about the Cliff Notes acquisition, they said, oh, God, I'm proud to admit it, they saved my butt. So your customer is telling you what your brand platform is. You got to listen actively to have your customers, and if you don't have it intuitively, go out and talk to people how they feel about the brand. Personality is brand, icons and symbols. If you stay focused on launch strategy, product attribute assessment, and how do we look at our corporate identity as how we define it and not really understand the emotional connection, you'll never understand branding. And the notion is that product attributes are a subset of the brand surround, which is really important. And so, why does any of this matter? Who cares? So what? It's all about what sits on your balance sheet. If you look at Coca-Cola, McDonald's, and Starbucks, you're going to see this heavy line item all about the marks, the trademarks, and it's going to outweigh any of their physical products that they produce. So the differential between what a branded product can charge for its brand and its product and services versus what an unbranded product can do is the brand equity that really is central to why you invest in branding and why you not just throw stuff in the marketplace and hope it sticks without any rhyme or reason about how you've defined the market to advantage, how connected you are emotionally to your prospect, how they feel, and that's the holy grail. That's why branding matters. That's why there won't be marketing directors in the 21st century. There will be brand directors, and that's going to be a new function that's going to be central to any company that's going to be sustainable. So, what have we learned? We've learned a lot. I've learned a lot. Certainly, there's so many things that I believe can be shared with you and any of your colleagues in any industry, and it revolves around a lot of things, okay? If you look at most entrepreneurs that are successful, Richard Branson, you look at people that just never said no, you got to break the rules, okay? You've got to understand what it is that is in your gut, okay? And if I were to listen to anybody and say, DOS for Dummies will never work, it's a flash in the pan, you're insulting your customers, I don't want to buy it, you got to be kidding me. Gary McCord, CBS TV, why would I want to write Golf for Dummies? But when Gary McCord was consulted to do Tin Cup, and he had to teach Kevin Costner and Don Johnson how to play golf, and he says, I get it. Smart people don't have the time to invest like I do in how technique and etiquette and how to approach the game mentally. So Gary McCord does our books, one of the best golf books around. Dr. Ruth says, you know, I've written a lot of books and I've got a very responsible brand. It's my equity. It's my authoritative opinions and voice. And then she thought about it. We kept coming after her. We said, we got to do it. It's the right thing to do together. She says, you know what? The Talmud has this passage that says, and it's timeless, a lesson taught with humor is a lesson retained. And that's the essence of what we do, and that's why Dr. Ruth came to collaborate with us. So break the rules. Failure precedes success. Before I launched DOS for Dummies, I launched a real cool Nike, "You Can Do It with DOS." You know, that was really hip. Can blow up those books. That didn't work. Then I co-branded with PC World, and that was moderately successful. But there were 2 DOS initiatives that I launched, lost money on, before DOS for Dummies was the 3rd try. If you read Built to Last, Jim Collins will talk about continuous improvement, continuous trial and error. Don't ever back down, and failure always precedes success. And you have enough confidence in your ideas and your intuition to stick with it even when times are tough. You've got to dare to be different. You cannot be me too. I think it's pretty simple. But you know how many people take the easy way out? Let's just follow the competition. I've got my theory called M&Ms. It's called metrics and metaphors. Anybody can get funding if they got great metrics and they got great metaphors. Now that's a little simplistic, but the notion is if you study your competition, the competition doesn't put any money in your pocket. And you can define the site traffic, you can define the revenue, you can do pro forma P&Ls, but you know what, at the end of the day, they're not putting any money in your pocket, and if you obsess about your competitor, you're not focusing at all on what the opportunity is with your customer. So we have a philosophy and a corporate value. Stay close to your customer and qualified prospects, not stay close to your competitor. You need to know what's happening in the competitive landscape for sure, pricing, etc., but you need to also be really aware. And I lost a few things, but the notion that I wanted to share back there was mind share precedes market share. Always follow the beat of a different drummer. You have to always look at the biggest room is the room for improvement. You have to say to yourself, I want a team that has a point to prove. I always like people to hire that have what I have E cubed. Energy times enthusiasm times entrepreneurial spirit. I want the people that have not been believed in, no one really gave them a shot like me, and then we get them on the way up, and then they've got more shared, and culture is king. So, Sumner Redstone talks about content is king, and then he bought CBS and he said content and distribution is king, and I'd argue culture is king. Much more substantial than our brand is the culture. People want to be on a winning team. They want to be recognized for their efforts. They want to have the freedom to dress informally and casually. They want to be able to win and be able to be recognized for that effort. So culture is really important. So many people have sweatshops and they don't understand what drives their success.